Jack Ryan. Sometime back, I did videos on famous turquoise mines, and one of those was Nevada Blue and Indian Mountain. Since that time, I've done some more research about Indian Mountain, and I've got some more turquoise from Indian Mountain to look at. So I thought this was a good time to do Indian Mountain Part 2. Now, in conjunction with this video, there will be an article on the blog called a photo trip to Indian Mountain. And that will contain a lot of the updated research about Indian Mountain, give you some more background about the history of that mine. Now, Indian Mountain is considered one of the 7 classic turquoise mines of Nevada, as defined by Bob Bruscia in his book, Turquoise, Jewel of the Southwest. So, without any further ado, let's take a look at some beautiful Indian Mountain turquoise. In this first tray, we get a real sense of the different looks that come from Indian Mountain. And if we start here at the top, we see this one, which is kind of a traditional lighter blue on the reddish-brown matrix background. And this is from the Nevada Gem Collection, Bob Bruscia. And then if we look over on this side, we see a little different look there. It has a little lighter matrix background, little different blue color, and this comes from Brown's Trading. We go down here and then we see an example of the dark web that comes from Indian Mountain. And we see it in these 4 cabs and also in this cab right here. And my goodness, it would be so easy to confuse that with any number of dark web turquoise. Probably the most familiar with that would be Red Mountain, which really is just across the valley from Bald Mountain, where Indian Mountain is located. This is sort of a rare look for Indian Mountain, which are the greens. And this is very, very beautiful turquoise, but again, not one that you would necessarily immediately identify as Indian Mountain. And these green ones come from Eric Runquist. So quite a range of different looks from Indian Mountain. We had a video explaining the value of provenance, how important it is to know the provenance, which is the source of the turquoise, and the schedule of ownership. Who owned this turquoise before you got it? And as we said, oftentimes, provenance really begins and gets real difficult afterwards if you didn't buy the turquoise from the miner, buy the turquoise from someone who bought it from the miner, or buy the turquoise from a reputable dealer who bought from either of the previous 2. And this turquoise, this beautiful traditional high-grade look from Indian Mountain, gives us a good example of provenance. These 6 cabs matched set here on the top, Bob Bruscia was visiting with Fay Ward, who was Dow Ward's widow, and he looked in a case that contained a number of turquoise pieces from Dow Ward's collection, and he saw these cabs. And so he bought these from Fay Ward. So excellent provenance there coming from the Dow Ward collection. These were cut from rough turquoise that Bob Bruscia purchased from Richard Dan. And Richard, of course, we know from reading the article on a photo trip to Indian Mountain, which you can read on the blog, that Richard Dan was the owner of the Indian Mountain claims. So we see these, very exciting. We see these 2 over here and this one here, very similar to these 6 cabs we see up here. This has a little different look for Indian Mountain, a little different formation, a little different coloring on the blue. This, a little bit more of a of a water web that's still with the brown matrix. And this is really rich, dark brown matrix with the turquoise coming out, just kind of really shining out from this brown matrix. So once again, some beautiful, very high grade to gem grade Indian Mountain turquoise. Finally, we get to see an example of a very rare matched set. And these were certainly cut from the same nugget. And it's rare to see these, especially in these sizes. These are 132 carats. So they're each close to 70 carats each, which are nice big cabs. And these are really exceptional because we see here along the center run here and here, we see a very similar look to what we saw in the previous tray. That very tight, small turquoise formation in this light brown matrix. But then, as we noticed in the first tray, Indian Mountain does come in a dark web. And these are exceptional because on the outside, on this side of the nugget, as it was cut from that same nugget, you'll see the darker web showing through. And once again, provenance is so important. And sometimes, you know, with provenance, you have to get the dots as close together as you can, and then make some assumptions when you connect the dots. And in this instance, this turquoise was purchased from a dealer in Albuquerque. We don't know who that was, but one thing we do know is that Edwin Kennedy most probably financed the excursion when Eddie Mauzy did just about the only extensive mining at Indian Mountain in the late 1980s when he got some heavy equipment up there. And we believe this was financed by Edwin Kennedy, a very well-known, wealthy turquoise and Indian arts collector. And afterwards, he had the first choice from the turquoise that Eddie got on a sharing arrangement he had with Richard Dan, who owned the claim, had the claim. And so these are believed to come from Edwin Kennedy because John Chaney, another well-known turquoise and Indian jewelry trader in the Albuquerque area, had traded with Edwin Kennedy for a large amount of Indian Mountain. And it's believed that these then worked their way into this Albuquerque dealer's collection that he then sold to Bob Bruscia. So while we can't be 100% certain on that provenance, we've got the dots pretty close together, and I think we can make a reasonable speculation as to the provenance of these stones. In any case, aren't they exceptional? So, hope you've enjoyed this update on Indian Mountain turquoise.